Pitter-patter. Rats! Rats! The magician twisted against the restraints. Dr. Patrice von Temeshwar hated this, hated that her patient was in so much pain, soaked in sweat, eyes staring at horrors only he could see. She mopped his brow with a damp cloth. She tried to smooth his lank hair back, speaking in a soothing voice. "Please, Kartaja, you have to take your medicine. It will make the nightmares stop, I promise you." Kartaja twisted away, soaked in sweat, deep in the grip of the cursed wounds all over his body. Rat bites, rat scratches, bearing a contagion of the spirit as well as a pestilence of the body, one that made it impossible for the patient to tell what was real and what wasn't, trapping them in a waking nightmare. "You want to fill me with rats!" he shouted, foam speckling on his lips. "Rats! Up inside me, wherever they can get in! They burrow in! Rats!" He lurched against her, knocking the bowl out of her hand and spilling the juice within all over the floor. She counted to 10 internally, reminding herself that this was not Kartaja's fault, and trying not to think about how expensive the ingredients were for the preparation he'd just spilled. She glanced over to the other two magicians, a sturdy Steiner runesmith and a concerned freeborn scholar. "I think you're right," she said a little regretfully. "We'll need the solace of chimes, or we're going to lose him. He won't let me treat him." The Steiner nodded quickly and left to gather her coven. The freeborn gently squeezed Patrice's shoulder, offering what solace she could. In the bed, tangled in the sheets, Kartaja continued to howl and shout, his voice hoarse. "Rats!" he bellowed. "Inside you, they were wearing him like a suit!" Overview. For the last 6 months, Temeshwar has been beset by rats. They emerged shortly after the winter solstice. High points included attacks of Virtue's Respite and Lorenzo's Great Game, and the reasonably high-profile murder of the apothecary Ernesto de Temeshwar. There have been rumours of something dark in the tunnels and sewers under Temeshwar for years, perhaps even centuries. Recent stories claimed there was a creature of some kind, slain by warriors hired by the Veeg with the aid of a weapon provided by the Volodny known as the Shadowsmith. Yet the Veeg are gone, and the Volodny has not been seen in some years now. The message left on the wall, by the gnawed bones of Ernesto de Temeshwar, "Shadowsmith is dead, you fool," strongly suggests something permanent may have happened to that undying artisan. At the spring equinox, the Temeshwar Chamber of Commerce met to decide what to do about the situation. 2 proposals were laid before the business owners of the city, one from the War Dog Kennels of Temeshwar and the other from the Guild of the Green Flower. After a great deal of discussion, the Chamber voted to ride it out for the time being, rather than risk precipitous action making things worse, and to give the unfettered mind an opportunity to investigate the situation. Riding it out, farms in Temeshwar received an additional 18 rings over the coming season. Congregations did not benefit from the Bloody Great Theatre, nor did businesses benefit from Lorenzo's Great Game. Military units in Temeshwar that take the paid work action received an additional 18 rings, and the chatelaine of the Reaper's Repose received an additional throne. Anyone able to do so seizes any opportunity to get out of the city. They visit friends or family abroad, or take the opportunity to visit the Reaper's Repose. Poorer citizens just have to make the most of it. An epidemic of rat bites sees a lot of business for physics, but also sees a wave of sickness in the city. Symptoms that needed to be treated by a physic include persistent nausea and a mild hallucination involving being watched by rats. If the illness is left for too long, it gets worse, and there are reports of patients unable to keep down wholesome food, driven to feast on refuse that exposes those not fortunate enough to have the Draugr lineage to further sickness. The hallucinations of rats get worse, and there are 2 patients who have to be treated for blood loss after becoming convinced that the rats are somehow inside them. So far, the sickness has proved treatable with medicine brewed from blade root, but the worst cases have also required a suffusion of prismatic ink to help chase away the delusions of rats. Still, the doctors of Temeshwar are holding their own, for now. Seers and shitpipes. The Conclave asked the unfettered mind to look into matters in Temeshwar. A number of League military captains came to Temeshwar to help protect people and businesses from the rat. A labyrinth lies beneath Temeshwar. It has some claim to be the oldest city in the League. Built by the Varushkans in pre-imperial times, some historians claim that the first settlement here predates the arrival of the Highborn by a century or more. The maze of sewers and tunnels beneath Temeshwar are further complicated by entire streets roofed over and repurposed as the city grew. There are stories of explorers or builders finding entire lost cellars or basements, or in some cases ground floor rooms sunk in the earth. There are a few maps, but they are cursory at best and include only the main tunnels used by gong farmers, toshers, rat catchers, and criminals. The Imperial Conclave chose to ask the unfettered mind to explore the obvious magic at work in the city. They chose not to ask the Rod and Shield to protect the magical scholars. They were travelling to one of the largest cities in the Empire. What could go wrong? Fortunately for the unfettered mind's magicians, there were a number of captains who brought their soldiers to Temeshwar to help deal with the rat problem. Their efforts have ensured that while several magicians were hurt, none have been killed this time. The Order is able to confirm that there is magic at work. The rats are clearly being influenced. A series of increasingly bizarre traps are used to capture some of the creatures for proper examination. The cunning creatures easily avoid traditional rat traps, much to the frustration of Temeshwar's rat catchers. The first thing the magicians are able to confirm is that this is not the result of a curse, dispelling fears that this was some machination of the Hag Queen. Not all the rats are ensorcelled. Rough estimates suggest that about 1 in 12 has an aura similar to an enchantment but of an undetectable provenance. One particularly savvy scholar from Holberg brings their own cage of rats with them and believes that it is only the rats of Temeshwar that are affected. Even allowing for the fact that their rats are pets and companions rather than wild creatures, they remain placid and friendly throughout their stay in the city. Even exposure to Temeshwari rats under controlled conditions produce no change in their behaviour. But it is clear that the domesticated rats are even more terrified of the Temeshwari sewer rats than the people are. Rodents of assorted sizes. As well as the packs and swarms of rats, 2 other creatures have been reported by the unfettered mind. The rat swarms, where dozens to hundreds of rats boil out of the sewers or abandoned buildings and indiscriminately attack people, are only one aspect of the situation. The unfettered mind are able to observe 2 other horrors lurking in the tunnels and sewers that appear to be much more careful about being seen. The first are massive, bloated rats larger than a wolf. They're usually spotted solo or surrounded by more normally sized rats. If they have the advantage, they attack with horrible savagery. A Wintermark magician who ends up on the wrong end of their attack likens it to being mauled by a small chittering bear. The minute a fight seems to turn against them, they scamper away, deftly avoiding attempts to trap them. So far, they've not been seen above ground, only encountered in tunnels and basements. The second creature there is only one sighting of, and it is not entirely reliable. Cartagia of Windfall Spire is a refined and self-centered scholar, the last person one would expect to wander around a sewer. Indeed, the clever scholar spends most of his time organising his fellows and maintaining a base of operations in apartments hired from a merchant prince keen to get out of the city. So when they are found, covered in bites, delirious, wandering the streets with their robes in rags, it is clear something has gone wrong. The healers manage to save their life, but only just. The story they tell is sobering and more than a little chilling. A Temeshwari fellow came to see them at their apartments, bluffing their way past the door. When the 2 were alone, the man collapsed, a horde of bloodthirsty rats pouring out of his mouth. To his horror, Cartagia discovered that the man was nothing more than a hollow shell, a suit of skin worn by a small horde of rats. He managed to escape by throwing himself out the window, but has no idea what happened after that. The problem with Cartagia's story is that nobody else has seen anything like this, and the magician was clearly suffering dreadful hallucinations brought on by the rat bites and scratches. Is it possible he imagined this? Or are there, among the people of Temeshwar, people who are actually packs of sewer rats wearing hollowed-out person suits? Things that don't work. The unfettered mind experiment with a number of rituals. Among other experiments, the unfettered mind employ a number of rituals to see if they might offer some assistance against the rats. All 3 of the commonly known wards, Hold Back Frozen Hunger and There Is No Welcome Here, are both equally ineffective at dealing with the rats, meaning they are neither unliving horrors nor creatures of the realms. One of the highborn magicians, being almost over-thorough, also confirms that the ward of the Black Waste doesn't work. There is some further experimentation with winter magic wards, led by a coven of Kabbalists from Varushka, and they managed to confirm that it is possible to build a ward against the rat swarms. The problem is that it is almost entirely impractical. 7 crystal mana to ward a room against rats for a day is incredibly uneconomical. Even if the ritual were scaled up to last for an entire month, it would still be around magnitude 23, putting it outside the reach of all save the richest, and in no way a long-term solution to the problem. Attempts to track the rats with magic fail in the maze of tunnels under the city. The magicians who try it invariably get attacked by rat swarms and are forced to retreat even with the protection of League mercenaries. They're able to say with some certainty, however, that whatever the source of the rat plague is, it's somewhere under the city. Some of the Varushkans go further. They talk about the texture of the darkness and the sensation of being watched in ominous tones. Parts of the Undercity are without doubt the domain of a powerful malign force. They can't be absolutely certain what the force is, but they narrow it down to either a very potent herald of a hostile Eternal, or most likely a previously unknown sovereign. Castings of Shadowed Glass of Sung and Clear Lens of the Eternal River add further credence to this theory. In certain places, especially the oldest sewer tunnels and the small number of winding stone passages that seem to predate them, the night ritual identifies that the mystery or enigma at work here is that they are, quote, part of the domain of the King of Rats, end quote. Shadowsmith and the Veeg. The unfettered mind find evidence that the Volodny known as Shadowsmith has been destroyed. The unfettered mind are also able to confirm that all the signs indicate the Volodny known as Shadowsmith is indeed no more. Exploring some of the old tunnels, they come across what appears to be a richly appointed apartment deep beneath the city. The clear lens of the Eternal River is employed, and to the shock of the League magicians who perform it, it indicates that this place is where the Volodny Shadowsmith was devoured by the King of Rats. The place has clearly been looted. There is no sign of a body or any artisan tools, but the ritual is very clear. Rumours that Shadowsmith has been destroyed appear to be correct. What is this King of Rats that they could overpower and devour an old and powerful magician like the Shadowsmith, one who was thought to be immortal? King of Rats, conjunction. Brinton von Temeshwar claims to have a token that will allow safe contact with the King of Rats. This conjunction is a combat unlikely encounter. He is prepared to sell it for a sizable amount of money. A conjunction has been identified on the Sentinel Gate at 15:45 on Saturday, leading to the old Priory Inn in Temeshwar, Hanuri. Brinton has asked the Grand Master of the Unfettered Mind to put together a suitable party to come speak with him. There may be an answer to that last thing. During their exploration of the city, the Unfettered Mind have several encounters with Brinton von Temeshwar, an older man with a reputation for having spent a lot of time touring the League cities in his youth, getting into scrapes, or, depending on who you ask, engaging in criminal acts appropriate to a committed mountebank. Brinton seems very interested in how the investigation is going, happy to share stories of the grim history of the city and offer mostly useless advice about the places the magicians might like to look. Shortly before the summer solstice, however, he sends a message to Anvil along with one of the Temeshwari members of the Order. He would be interested to meet with the Grand Master of the Order, and up to 4 other folk with an interest in the situation in Temeshwar. Brinton, it seems, has in his possession a token that will allow someone to have a meeting with the true power of Temeshwar and survive the experience, and is prepared to sell it to an interested party if the price is right. And by right, he means high. A conjunction has been identified on the Sentinel Gate at 3:45 in the afternoon on Saturday that will allow a small party to travel to the Old Priory, an inn in Temeshwar. The oldest guild. One Temeshwari guild seems to favour the current situation, the Rat Kings. A conjunction of the Sentinel Gate opens to the alley behind their favourite tavern in Temeshwar at 1900 on Friday evening. They've asked for the Senator for Temeshwar to select some representatives of the Chamber of Commerce to come to speak to them. One guild seems to actually welcome the current chaos. The Rat Kings are Temeshwar's self-described pre-eminent collective of rat catchers, sewer walkers and night soil collectors guild. They claim to be one of the oldest, if not the oldest, guilds in the city, and say they can trace their origins back to the first loose association of people with wheelbarrows and shovels, finding wealth in the leavings of others. They talk a big game, but it is notable that while they may be old and omnipresent, they don't seem to be particularly rich. Or if they are, they hide it well. Still, it can't be denied that they are good at what they do. Their members have an unerring sense of direction underground, and supply excellent guides to anyone who wants to explore the twisted maze beneath the city streets. Their maps are a bit better and more detailed, but their main advantage is their ability to know where they are at all times, even if they don't necessarily know where they are going. Adventurers exploring the sewers are advised to throw a crown or two to the Rat Kings to secure one of their pipe guides. Those who don't tend to end up lost, emerging from the sewers covered in rat bites and an inordinate amount of foulness. They're quite good at hunting rats too, and by all accounts they are doing very well out of the chaos in the city. They've gone on record several times as saying the Chamber of Commerce made the absolute right decision to let people look after themselves. War dogs are big, stupid, dangerous beasts barely suited to be around civilized people. The Guild of the Green Flower are jumped-up chancers incapable of the precision needed to use poison safely in a built-up area, and doing nobody any favours by trying to muscle in on the business of true professionals. It does not escape notice that the Rat Kings are remarkably unconcerned about the rat swarms, or the rumours of larger and stranger creatures. Their members shrug nonchalantly, and suggest that these things are all in a day's work for the preeminent guild of collective rat catchers, sewer walkers, and night soil collectors. It's also interesting that the merchant prince of their guild is only ever referred to as King or King Rat, and nobody can quite remember ever having actually met them. One doesn't need to be a member of a conclave order to find this all a little bit suspicious. Terrier's Roar Conjunction. An opportunity exists to visit Temeshwar to speak with some of the officers of the Rat Kings. A conjunction of the Sentinel Gate will reach the alley behind their favourite tavern at 7 p.m. Friday evening. The senator of Temeshwar, a handsome devil known as Giuseppe Sanguineo von Temeshwar, has been asked to put together a small delegation. In previous seasons, members of the Rat Kings have visited Anvil a few times, but they're obviously a little too busy right now to take time away from fleecing as much money as possible out of people who want to keep rats out of their pantries. Still, they've made no secret of the fact that they're keen to offer their services to the Chamber of Commerce. When it becomes apparent that there is a conjunction of the Sentinel Gate that will open in the alley behind the Guild's official tavern in Temeshwar, the Terrier's Roar, they're extremely keen to see it used. The conjunction opens at 7 in the evening on the Friday, and they have asked that the Senator for Temeshwar, Giuseppe Sanguineo von Temeshwar, pick some people to discuss terms for securing their expert assistance. The Chamber of Commerce. The rat plague shows no sign of subsiding. The decision of what to do remains with the Chamber of Commerce. There are currently 3 or 4 possibilities. The rat hunt adventure remains available to League citizens. The decision about what to do about the rats remains with the Chamber of Commerce. Both the War Dog Kennels of Temeshwar and the Guild of Green Flower are prepared to offer their services. It's possible that the meeting with the Rat Kings might lead to a third possibility, or the Chamber could continue to do nothing and see what happens next. As before, this latter will continue to be bad for some, and good for others. Every business owner in Temeshwar is part of the city's Chamber of Commerce, including the Steiner Grimnir Kalira of Wintermark. The Egregore has worked with the civil service to secure an updated list of everyone eligible to vote. Discussion and vote will take place at 3 in the afternoon on Saturday. The decision will be by show of hands among all those eligible. The opportunities on the table will be to accept the offer of the War Dog Kennels, accept the offer of the Guild of the Green Flower, or ride it out. Details of the offers are the same as those presented last season, in the They Bit the Cat's Wind of Fortune. If the Senator for Temeshwar wishes, the offer of the Rat Kings may also be presented. It's probably just a coincidence that the meeting with Brinton von Temeshwar takes place after the vote of the Chamber of Commerce. The timing of the conjunction is in the hands of the Sentinel Gate, not any individual mortal after all. Lorenzo's Deep Pockets. The situation at Lorenzo's Deep Pockets is deteriorating. There is something at large in the depths of the great mine workings. The Shuttered Lantern have made a report to their Grandmaster concerning their findings. As recounted in the spring equinox, something appears to have taken up residence in Lorenzo's Deep Pockets. It does not seem to be the same something that is bedeviling Temeshwar, however. This particular horror is something all of its own. Before the spring equinox, a fell wind from the northwest was reported, blowing in off the Vardstein Vale. Since then, a significant number of workers have fallen sick, becoming listless and enervated, lacking the strength to work, and barely having the inclination to eat and drink. What began with a handful of miners has spread widely, and fear has followed in its wake. It's uncertain exactly what is causing this sickness. Still, nobody has died from it, but nobody gets better either. In the end, the Shuttered Lantern have been called in. The magicians who visit the Bloody Great Hole are much more discreet than those active in Temeshwar. They have prepared a report for the Grandmaster rather than revealing their discoveries publicly. They're not the only people in the tunnels, though. The place is a site of adventure for many Imperial warbands, and this season is no exception. Between the mercenaries and a few comments from the Shuttered Lantern, 3 things have been discovered. There is something in the mine, something dangerous, and it is not Trigoni, or anything like that. It is something smart, and it is not alone. There are people or people-shaped things serving it. The air in the deep pockets has become sour. The sickness that is spreading among the workers comes from breathing the tainted air for too long. There's no easy way to tell when the air has become tainted, or if there is, the shuttered lantern hasn't revealed it. Finally, the situation is coming to a head. Nearly a third of the workers are now too ill to work, and more are having to be brought in. This will impact the bounty of the deep earth received by the Delver of the Depths. Following the summer solstice, they will receive 10 fewer Welt Silver, 5 fewer Tempest Jade, and 4 fewer Crystal Mana. It will also affect those who take part in the adventure to explore the depths. Their production will not change, but the captain of any military unit who undertakes the adventure will find a lingering traumatic wound in their pack. If left untreated, the wound might also prove fatal, or worse. Hopefully, the Grand Master of the Shuttered Lantern will have some idea about how to proceed. Participation. If your military unit took part in the Explore the Depths encounter this season, or you're a member of the Unfettered Mind Order, you are free to talk about the dreadful experiences in the depths of Lorenzo's deep pockets. The themes are of a lurking dread, swift-moving creatures glimpsed out of the corner of the eye, a feeling of being stalked, and the sudden, unexpected stench of death and rot that vanishes almost as soon as it appears. You may also have caught a glimpse of some of the creatures lurking in the upper mine, pale, human or orc-shaped, armed with improvised weapons and the occasional club or long knife. They never stay still long enough to get a good look at them. You'll also have heard about the disappearances. Workers and mercenaries alike are disappearing from around Lorenzo's deep pockets, and nobody knows what's happening to them. Further reading. They Bit the Cats. A 386 YE Spring Wind of Fortune.